So welcome to Eden Project's Rainforest biome, wherever you are. I know we've got people across the country and I think across the world joined us for our first ever Last Chance to Paint live webinar from Eden Project's Rainforest biome with John Dyer. And John's gonna get painting really soon, and I hope you are as well. But we've just got a little film to show you, a 1-minute film, in case you've never visited the Eden Project before, just to give you an idea of what we've got here. Rob, can you roll that film for us? Okay, so John, I know you're no stranger to Eden Project's Rainforest biome. You spent a lot of time here, but so that everybody can get started, and before we talk to you more about Last Chance to Paint and your amazing experiences, tell us a little bit about what you're up to today.
Well, I'm going to be painting a picture of Borneo. Anyway, we're going to paint, this is the Penang tribal house, and this is obviously Eden, but we're in Malaysia, in the rainforest. So the big island of Borneo is in Malaysia, and we're going to be painting that today. We're going to paint the bats leaving the cave. So to start off with, we're going to start a sunset down, because the bats leave their cave, and I'm going to put some oranges and some pinks down, and I'm going to put some whites on here too. You can all do this on your paper. I'm going to cover my canvas in these lovely colours like that, and then we're going to mix it all together on the page. So here we go. This is a sunset. And then we're going to bring in the plants afterwards. Sam, you might want to just watch your clothes there, because it tends to flick off the side of the paint.
No, I'd be quite excited to leave here with a bit of John Dyer paint on me. I think that would be great. So I hope, children, you are busy painting too, and that you've got a great view here of our rainforest biome. John, this is part of a much bigger project called Last Chance to Paint. It's a really interesting title for a project. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
It is, yes. We are living in a world where we're all looking at many plants and animals struggling with the environment, and sadly there are many species, plants, animals that are actually on the edge of extinction. So the subjects we look at through Last Chance to Paint aren't necessarily going to become extinct. However, unless we all do our bit and learn about how we can tread more gently on planet Earth, there's a fair chance we are going to lose so many more species. And it's when you're painting, when I'm painting now, I'm actually connecting to the subject in front of me, and I do high-speed learning. And I think, well, I know that children, rather than just listening to me, because you're all painting along, you're going to remember this probably for the rest of your lives. And when you finally finish your painting, and we're not going to get these finished in half an hour, you can go back to it, put it in your fridge, and you'll remember that the rainforest is an incredibly important environment.
Cool. And so why have you started with the background?
Okay, well, this is a very traditional way of working, from the sky to the ground and the background, and then as soon as I've done that, I'm going to start to put in extra shapes, looking at the plants and the trees in front of me, which you can probably see from this camera here. You can see the whole view. So let's start to block some of those in now. I'm getting a different size brush. I'm going to start with like a dark colour here, Sam.
Cool. So my friends who are on the chat there, Bran and Rob, are going to put the Last Chance to Paint web link into the chat there, so you can all find out loads more. And John has created loads of resources from his exciting journeys to the people and places of the tropics.
We have. So there's we've got 2 expeditions ready to go with full teacher notes and lesson plans and daily videos from the Amazon rainforest, and also from Borneo with orangutans, and a future project which will happen in February of next year will be in Kenya. Teacher notes are already there. You can do these projects already. And every piece of final work that your children produce, if you submit it to Last Chance to Paint via our online form, we will put it in the World Gallery. So all of the children can bear testament to what we might lose unless we kind of get a bit better at what we're doing. So hopefully the children can see, I'm just putting in the dark shapes of some trees here. And there's a lovely banana I can see here. I'm going to bring that in, just building in the background. I think while we're doing this, because we started late through a technical hitch, because I think the children, you can make this your own painting. This is your own rainforest, so you can use lots of exciting shapes. I'm seeing lots of amazing shapes here to work with. Build up some rainforest shapes. But I think maybe, should we have a look at those bats that I'm going to be painting a bit later?
Yeah, are you ready to share some bat excitement with us, Rob? We'd love to see them, and then I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the Eden Project and what we've got going on here as well.
In the north of Borneo, the rainforest clings to the limestone rocks, and the limestone over the years has created one of the largest cave systems on planet Earth.
Just look how epic it is in here, and that's the entrance back behind me.
Millions of bats live in these caves, and they cling to the ceiling, and as they roost, their droppings fall to the floor.
So there's batties all over the cave, and they do their business everywhere, and the smell is disgusting.
There's a huge web of life in the cave because of the bats and their droppings. And in the evenings, the bats go out to feed through the gaps in the cave.
We are watching a spectacle of bats coming out of their cave, and you can see them in the very distance, thousands of them coming out in a massive spiral to protect themselves from a bat hawk, which we have also seen trap on. It's really exciting, and it's been a wonderful evening because of it.
These bats are wrinkled lipped bats, and it's estimated there are about 3.5 million, and every evening they head off over the rainforest to feed, catching insects and fertilising the forest with their droppings. They're an important part of the life cycle of the Borneo rainforest.
In Borneo, there are about 2.5 to 3.5 million bats every evening. This is in Mulu in the north of Borneo, near the Brunei border. And every evening they leave their bat cave that you just saw and basically spread nutrients around the rainforest. Amazing scene. So I think it would be really lovely to build those in a minute into our painting. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep painting. Hopefully Rob, our producer's got the screen split 2 or 3 ways, so you can still see me painting while we're chatting about the rainforest plants with Catherine, and then come back to me in a bit and we'll talk about the Penang house in a bit.
Brilliant, thanks John. How are your pictures going, children? Do ask us questions in the chat. We'll have some time in just a minute to tell you a little bit to answer some of your questions. But here at Eden Project, we are on a mission. So the Eden Project has a mission, and that is all about connecting people with nature. We're in a great example of a place that used to be, well, it was a bit of a mess. It was a quarry, and it was reaching the end of its life as a quarry. And in this quarry, we made this incredible global garden called the Eden Project, full of plants that tell the story of our connection with places and people and stories all around the world. And we, just like John, we have created lots of lesson resources and things that you can follow up in school to learn out more. And Bran and Rob are going to add those into the chat for you as well. But let's just go back to Catherine. So she has the amazing job of looking after these biomes with her team here. And she was in the thick of telling us about the banana plant. So let's go back to that.
Lots of exciting plants, but bananas are something that you really think about when you think about the tropics, because they have such enormous leaves. And lots of tropical plants have enormous leaves like this. You can imagine when you're in a forest and there's lots of big tall trees grabbing all the light. If you're a little bit shorter, you need to do the best job you can. So if you've got great big leaves, you've got a good chance of catching some of that light that comes down.
Yeah, brilliant. And what about this one next to it? It's got some interesting colours on it over here as well.
There's colours on the stem. And look at the veins underneath there. So actually for the plants that are even smaller than the bananas lower down, one way that they can make sure that they can survive and grab light is by having different colour pigments. So often they have red leaves or red staining, and then they can grab a different wavelength of light, and so they can still survive by making sure that they get whole light lower down. There are loads of other fabulous plants around here though. Just in the area where John's painting, we've got the Malay apple tree, which has got bright cerise pink flowers, which do give you afterwards some fruit. So everybody knows that, say an apple tree, the flowers lead to fruit. Except the fruit on the Malay apple, they're not very tasty, not like an English apple. So
Cool. So how do you make a rainforest in Cornwall? I mean, we do have Cornish rainforest, but it's not like this one. What are the challenges for you and your team?
Well, that's a really good question, because these plants wouldn't grow in Cornwall normally, would they? So what they need is they need it to be really warm, they need lots of light, they need nice, hot, humid conditions. So what we built here at Eden is this great big dome, and it's got like 2 layers of bubble wrap as such. It's made up of this plastic double layer, and it insulates it, so it keeps it really warm in the winter. And at the back of the dome is a big sort of cliff, so when it's sunny the cliff absorbs all the heat and it radiates that heat back out on the plants. But we do sometimes have to put a bit of extra heat in the middle of the winter, but generally we use the sun as much as we can. And to begin with, we had to put in lots of extra moisture, humidity, to keep the humidity up. But as the plants have grown and as they form their own forest, they now do it themselves, and they keep the environment in here really humid along with the heat.
Brilliant. I'm certainly feeling that heat and humidity in the sunshine in here a little bit this afternoon. Let's go and see how John's getting on. And John, I really want to hear more about some of your travels to these amazing places. Can you tell us about some of the people that you've met?
Yeah, particularly interesting project again in Borneo with the Penan tribe. Now the Penan people, or Penan tribe, they used to be completely nomadic. And if you go back to the 1970s, that's how they were living in the forest. And a really interesting thing I discovered talking with the Penan was none of them have any birthdays. They have no idea how old they are. And I just think that's a remarkable thing. So when they were given, excuse me bending down here Sam, I'm just getting some more paint. When they were given identity cards by the Malaysian government, they all had to invent an age. So our guide, a lovely guy called Ishmael, would say, well, I think I'm about 52, I don't know when I was born. So that whole sense of time wasn't part of their life. And they would literally be nomadic, wander through the forest, set up a camp with their family group, spend 2 or 3 days there and move on. And they're a fascinating, gentle, wonderful people. And the best person to tell us about the Penan tribe when I'm painting, and the building I'm painting here on this part of the canvas here, that's very typical, not quite how Penan would have it, but quite typical of how now they're settled. But let Robin Hadby Tennyson, who's a very good friend, great friend of Eden, the 20th century world's greatest explorer and a great friend of the Penan. Let's roll that video now, Robin. We can run that video of the Penan and let's learn about them.
Brilliant, thank you.
This is on the 19th of August 1977, the day after Nyapun and I first met, when I'd come to his camp.
Well, we're just about to go in and see Nyapun, my old great friend, because he's probably well over 90 now. And we spent over a year together when I was out here in 1977-78, traveling all over Mulu, and I never needed to take anything with me because Nyapun had everything and was a nomad and lived at home in the Fell Forest. Look how swell he looks. Look at him. He's looking so strong. He's a big man. He used to be bigger than me. He was the strongest man in Mulu.
Gosh.
He, 2 wives.
We did.
2. 10 children.
Gosh.
Both wives still here looking after you. Okay, so this is a longhouse. It's not a traditional longhouse exactly, because the Penan people, these are Penan people living in Long Iman, who were only settled about 50 years ago. Before that they were nomadic hunter-gatherers. But now they're living in a longhouse, and they've built a longhouse according to traditional lines. Now, longhouses are far and away the best houses ever designed by man. They are incredibly long, as you'll see if we get to the end. And the way it works is that the area I'm walking down the middle of is the communal area where everybody talks and meets, and the children play, and the grannies sit and knit, and everybody has a good time out here, day and night. The men have gone out hunting all day, and the women have gone out to the gardens. So this is the communal area where the longhouse really is centred about. And the more important you are, the nearer the middle you live. So this is the chief's house, right in the middle, his Billy. And he will be living here, and it looks out on the right over to the river, with the gardens and some gardens in between. And then as you go further down the longhouse, people of less importance live, until you get the very unimportant people right at the end.
Robin have his happy hour, sleeping in the hot tub.
Okay, John, we've got some requests. Can you do your explanations a little bit slower, please?
I can.
And can you tell us a little bit about what is going on with your painting now, and what tips could you give the children?
Well, it's like your paintings in the schools. This is now very wet, so I'm starting to use some thicker paint, but might also be looking to paint in areas that have dried, maybe like the top of the sky here. I'm looking not to just recreate what I see, but to kind of react to it emotionally. So we're talking about bats. They come out in the evenings from their roosts, so I'm using lots of evening colours here, and I'm looking at the shapes of the leaves. And pretty much, if you imagine the shape of a leaf, it's going to pretty much exist in the rainforest. I'm pretty sure Catherine would second that. There's all sorts of shapes, whether they're long or whether they're wide, whether they've got a heart shaped. Lots of them will have patterns on them too. So you could use colours actually on the leaves to make circles and lines. So I'm not painting this for a particular sort of species of plant. It's the essence of being in Borneo and how that would feel. And do you know, it is a piece of art. It's not a photograph, and that's the great joy of this. I'm using acrylic paint. I should think most of the schools watching are using poster paints or watercolours. It's the same process really, and I don't pre-draw my painting. I'm reacting to it. So I've just noticed a tree ahead of me, and it's got quite a bendy trunk, so I'm just emphasising that. It almost looks like a liana. That's great. Suits my painting really well. So for all the children, it's your painting. There's no right, there's no wrong. Sometimes a painting goes really well, sometimes it goes less well, but actually it's a process and it's a learning journey, and you don't have to finish this in 30 minutes. I would never, and I won't finish this today. This would normally take me 3 or 4 hours in the rainforest to complete, and in my studio probably a week, because I'm not surrounded by all the things that inspire me. I'd have to keep looking them up. But yeah, so you can hopefully relax into it. You don't feel you have to copy my painting, but just keep getting shapes on, leaves on. Looking at the palm tree. There's a really nice palm tree at the top. I'm going to get a really fine brush, so I'm just picking a fine brush off the floor, which is this little brush here. And I've got some red on my palette, which is a paper plate. And I'm just going to put on some fronds of this palm tree as if it's catching the sunlight. I had no idea we were going to do that when I started this painting, but I can see the painting needs this. So every child who's painting has their imagination, what they want to achieve. The subject kind of has its opinion, and then your painting itself, in a way, will force it as well. And if you don't work with your painting, that's when it can go really wrong. So work with your painting. I watched a very well-known artist once painting, and he tipped a load of water over his painting by mistake and made a great big splodge. But he said, okay, that's what the painting wants to be like, and he worked it in. It's a really good thing to do.
So yeah, I was just going to ask you that about whether or not a painting can go wrong and what you might do about that. I'd also like to ask Rob or Mark, could you just check the camera angles, because some people are saying they can't quite see the painting as well as they would like to be able to, so we could check in on that. But yeah, painting's gone wrong, is that a thing?
Yeah, can be a thing. I've even turned a painting upside down and started again once because the bottom looks so much more better than the top. So yeah, so I think our tech team are moving some of the cameras around to get a better view for you. I think the gimbal camera to my left will be really good, especially if I keep my paper plate down. That'd be good. And I think this is an opportune moment because I'm not sure how we're doing for time, Sam.
We're okay.
We're okay. I think I might start to bring some bats in and then go back to my forest, just because we've had a look at those. Before I do that, I'm just going to bring in the sort of back of the hut here. So you can see I haven't predefined all of this. I'm now spotting areas that need shade, so I'll then go and paint this in. And I can go back to this later and go back to it tomorrow. There's even an artist in St Ives who I met many years ago, and he had a painting in a drawer he'd been working on for 40 years. And every morning he'd take it out, do something, or take something off it and put it back again. So I'm not suggesting you guys take that long. You'll all be pensioners by then, but it is a very, hopefully quite a relaxed process when one's not on the clock. But yeah, let's have a look how this would work. I'm just going to put in some more colour in here and then maybe just start to, I'm quite liking this pink for the sunset.
And you've told us a little bit about some of the people that you've encountered, and we'll ask Catherine to tell us about some more of the amazing plants in here in a minute.
Yes.
But what about the animals that you've encountered on your travels?
Well, we're not painting orangutans today, but if I stick to Borneo as the subject today, then the orangutans, who I met in the south of Borneo, incredible. They're 97% genetically the same as you and I. They behave in the same way. One of them came into camp, stole all the food and cakes. Another one took the canoe away, went upriver. They are remarkable, very beguiling creatures, and again, sadly, critically endangered. By the time, if you're age 8 now, by the time you're 18, they might not exist in the wild. However, with projects like this, an Eden project and awareness, they will exist because people are working really, really hard. But yeah, the orangutans are really amazing. But in the bat cave you saw, the soft-shelled turtle, incredible creature, lives completely in the dark. It's blind, it's white. It's developed just for that ecosystem in the bat cave. And this is a bit gruesome, but they've got crickets. They've got bat-dwelling crickets in Borneo that come out and they eat the dead bats. And that's kind of like a horror story, but that's an amazing thing as well. Now I was just going to say, let's add some bats into this painting.
But yeah, it's also a really good example of how it's all interconnected, isn't it? The plants and the animals, the whole ecosystem, all working together.
It is, and we're part of that ecosystem.
Absolutely we are. So Catherine, tell us a little bit more about what's growing right around us here in the Malaysian home garden.
One more animal in Borneo, which when I was working out there was everywhere, which are leeches. Great big leeches. Yeah, so when you're walking through the forest, you've got to watch out because they'll be hunting you. Yeah, even though they're small. But around us right now here, we've got a garden which shows the sort of thing that people might be growing around their homes. And basically, you've got to grow everything that you need. So here, just in this small area, we've got rice and we've got taro, we've got konjac, things that provide your basic carbohydrates. We've also got beautiful fruit. So this tree behind me is a starfruit tree, and for most of the year it is literally dripping with starfruit, which are exceptional. There's lots of veggies around, so we've got masses of sweet potato that just makes a sea of green across the ground. And then we've got plants for drinks as well. We've got plants for making teas and that sort of thing. But to spice up your food a little bit, things like ginger, just growing at this time of year, just starting, and things like chili as well. So is all the spices and flavours can come from the garden, literally right there around you. And if you get a chance to come to visit Eden, you can also touch and feel some of these things and realise how scented some of them are. So obviously we don't have smell-o-vision yet, but if you get a chance, rub up patchouli, this really unusual smoky sort of Asian scent.
Amazing, thank you. I think given our tech troubles with sound and audio, I think smell-o-vision might be a little bit much. How are those bats coming, John?
Yeah, just putting them in, so they have their wings that are pretty typical, but when you see them, as you saw from the short film we showed you, it's basically a blizzard of little kind of dark dots. So you can use dark blue or purple, and they all come out from the almost like collapsed roof of the cave. It is an amazing spectacle to see, but it makes a lovely sort of subject. So all you need to do is just do like a mark and another mark like that, and another mark and another mark, and it basically defines bat. And then as they get smaller, you can just go for little dots like this. And it is a painting. You can see my paint is really wet, so I'm having the exact same difficulties as everybody else, but that's okay. Sometimes I'll use my little finger or my fingernail to rest on a dry part of the canvas like that, and that just supports my hand, so that then I can just get a little bit more control. And okay, that's left a bit of purple there. That's not a problem. We'll go over that in a moment. With the process of painting, accept the limitations of it, but the whole time imagine you're in the rainforest. So when I'm painting these bats, I'm almost imagining what's it actually like to be a bat, and what's it like to leave the safety of my cave where I roost during the day, and I have to leave. I have to go and feed and catch insects, and I have to stay close to my other little batty friends, because some of us are going to get eaten by bat hawk, and I don't want it to be me. So if I'm close, and if I go up in a spiral as they do, I'm probably going to survive. An unmeasurable percentage are taken by bat hawks, but that keeps the other part of the ecosystem going. And I think it's something to think about if you study the Last Chance to Paint projects at your school. This is a taster session, because you can run our projects over several days or several weeks. You can play a video every day, 5-minute video, and you can travel with us, and then do a painting and submit it to the World Gallery, and we'd love you to do that. But it's important to realise we're part of that ecosystem, and even in our country, insects and wildlife needs help. So around your school site, and this might not be possible, but for sites where it is possible, do plant trees, do allow some of the grass to grow wild, do put some wild flowers in. It doesn't have to be the whole playing field. You could just say, right, a 2-metre strip along the edge we're going to leave for wildlife and not trim it, because over 60% of the flying insects in our country have gone in the last 15 years or 16 years. So if you follow that curve along, we have a major problem. All of our food comes from flying pollinating insects. So there's a lot to do, and I think Last Chance to Paint is a heads up, and hopefully it will be Last Chance to Paint with a question mark, i.e. no, it's not. But at the moment, it's up to all of us to make sure.
Absolutely, and one of the ways that Eden Project can help with that is that we produce loads and loads of resources, lesson plans, loads of information to help teachers take your children outside for learning, get them into nature, get them learning in, about, for and from nature. So check out edenproject.com/learn. There's absolutely loads of resources there. And on that really important note, John, what you've just been saying,
yes,
I suppose there's a big question, and I'm going to come to Catherine with this one as well, is, we've bought a little piece of the rainforest here to Cornwall, but actually we're talking about places that for most of us are incredibly far away. We probably might never get to travel to them. So what do people here in the UK, in Europe, how do we make a difference to these really beautiful and important places and the people and the animals and plants that live in them? What can we do?
I'd say the absolute first thing is to value them. And we're talking about somewhere far, far away, but what we've also talked about is how much the people that live in that place value what's around them. And we only have to step outside the door, but it's so easy to take it all for granted. But to step outside the door and instead of just march into the car, just listen for the birds, be aware of the insects, start becoming more in tune with nature, because it's only then that we can actually think about wanting to look after and care for it. John, you've already talked about some cool things to do, like don't just cut all your grass,
Yeah.
like leave some strips around the edge, and maybe even add a few extra wildflowers to those areas as well.
It's really easy. It's
So-
kind of a no-brainer to do that. So I encourage all the schools to petition hard with whoever looks after your grounds and get that done. Every little scrap is important. Your own garden, if you've got a garden at home or a terrace or something, yes, you're going to want it nice to sit in, but there can be a percentage of it, even if it's only, 50 centimetres, 20 centimetres, that's not completely manicured, where hedgehogs can hibernate, where ladybirds can live their little ladybird lives. Because otherwise, if it's all manicured and perfect and concrete and decked, well, we're basically signing our own demise because we are part of the ecosystem. But another thing we can look out for is where products and foods come from. And in fact, there's a little, Rob, I didn't point this out, I'm talking to my technician Rob now. Rob, there's a little picture of video of palm oil plantation. You'll see there's a video there. Can you see that? It's got a grid of palm oil. Yep. Could you just play that out and I'll talk over the top of it. So we're just going to play some aerial footage that came from the Orangutan Foundation, and it shows a little patch of rainforest and it shows it surrounded by palm oil plantation, to give you an idea of the devastating effect on the rainforest that palm oil is having. Now, the palm oil plantations that are there, they're not going anywhere. You can interplant with them to try and make them more biodiverse, which is a really good idea. But what we really don't want to do is to take more and more rainforest down in those economies for more and more palm oil. So if you're going to have palm oil in your biscuits and your cakes and the puddings and all the products you'll find, you'll see it. See if you can get sustainable palm oil, or if there's a product that has rapeseed oil in or sunflower seed oil in instead, choose that one. That makes a big difference. That is why orangutans are on the edge of extinction, is partly, I could say broadly, but partly to do with palm oil. There are other issues with orangutans, but that's a big one you can do when you're shopping.
Great, and we've done lots of work on palm oil here at Eden as well, haven't we, Catherine?
Yeah, we have, and we've highlighted work that's going on, looking at how to at least increase the biodiversity within palm oil plantations. Yes, like John said, they might not be going away, but what can be done to make them better? And we can bring that back here to the UK as well. Instead of monocultures of crops, how can we be growing our crops better? And on a small scale, we can all look at places that we might be able to get a tree in here or a tree in there and increase the capacity for wildlife close to home.
Brilliant, thank you. Well, I know time is against us, and I know that the tech has been troublesome. As we've said, this is the first time that we've ever done this, so we are learning a lot, and I'm sure you'll give us lots and lots of feedback. If you've got any questions, if there are things you would like to ask us, put them in the chat and we will see if we can get to them. And John, can you just tell us a little bit more, any more tips? Are you entering the final phase of your painting now? What can you tell the children?
Okay, so I'm developing some darker areas, and as I said, I'll have to go back and finish this, as all of you will too as well. But obviously I'm setting this in the sunset, so I'm going to have some darker shapes, exciting darker shapes, and I can literally paint these over the top of my painting like that. And I'm just looking around the painting as I go where they might go. But also when you're painting, I'm going to put a dark line in here. You can sometimes roll your brush and that will give you a different line and also deliver fresh paint to the line. Works better with my right hand, but I'm mindful of the camera there. So just some simple techniques you can use. You can obviously use thick paint. So here's a thick blob of paint. I'm just going to put that there like it's a rock on the ground. It all adds to the painting. You can use much thinner paint, so it's drier. So let's go back up here. So this is drier, so you can see it sort of drags across the paper or canvas as I've got. That's a really good technique. You can also, as I said, you can twist your brush and you can use different size brushes. If you look in here, I don't know if you can tilt down, you can see I've got a range of brush sizes in here that I'm using, and they all do different things. So a flat brush for the background and round brushes for the detail. But painting doesn't have to be done in one sitting. Certainly not in half an hour, because that's, but it does, this is reconnecting me. So one of the things I'll do, how much time do we have now, Sam? Just out of interest.
We've got just a few more minutes.
Okay, so we need to sort of wind this up. So were there any questions that came in? We need to do quick fire questions?
No, I think the people are too busy painting and doing battle with the tech to have any questions for us, but I've got a couple more as well. You've told us about some of the exciting places that you've been.
Yes.
But have you got any plans to go anywhere else soon?
Yes. If it hadn't been for the pandemic, the whole world went on hold, quite obviously, for that. But in, excuse me, getting some paint here, just to finish off. In February of next year, I'd like all of the schools with us today and many others to come to Kenya with me, where we're going to be looking at the ecosystem of Kenya, and we're going to go meet the very last 2 northern white rhinos. Now that sounds like a terrible, tragic story, and in many ways it is. However, there are many rhino species. There may be a way of saving that species, but it's worth just bearing in mind that whatever age you are now, that we know we've taken the northern white rhino down to two. That's it. So last chance to paint, but we'll be looking at lots of other stories, and the Maasai story and the whole savannah story. So hopefully schools will join us for that one, live from Kenya.
Wow, I can't even imagine the technical challenges associated with that when we've struggled this much with the rainforest biome.
Yeah.
And just remind us, what can children do with their paintings when they finish them? Clearly, as you said, it's not the job of a half hour to fully complete their painting.
So yeah,
how can they share them?
Once they're finished and they're happy with them, if the teacher can photograph them and then upload them via our section on Last Chance to Paint, you go to Submit the Art. There's a form to fill in, terms and conditions, and the file names need to be changed to whatever you want to publish. So with me, you might want to put John Dyer, Rainforest Painting, Borneo, age 53, for example. But if you don't want to put my surname, don't put it in there. That's the reason it has to go through our upload form, so we don't publish any information that shouldn't be there. Everybody gets their art on there, unless you send me a blank piece of paper. And if there's any special educational needs you want to make us aware about, you can do that confidential on the form, and it's a forum for everybody to showcase the art next to mine and to the world, to say, let's be careful, let's tread gently.
Let's remember our connections to this extraordinary planet, which is just what the Eden Project is here to do, to remind us all of our connections with nature. We would love to see you here, maybe with your family, maybe with your class, or come and visit us online. We've got loads and loads of resources to help you find out more about this extraordinary world that we live in, and more about some of the stories that John and Catherine have shared with us today. So any closing thoughts for us, John, as we wind up?
I would say that creativity, doing things, painting, building, is, I think, one of the best ways to learn about a subject rather than just listening about it. I would encourage teachers, wherever they can, to get children doing things while being delivered the information, because I think it sticks, and the environment is just key to everything. So, and please sign up to Last Chance to Paint, get involved, and we'll be there, hopefully there for years, and let us know. And if you're on Twitter, social media, share your what you've done today and your photographs of your class that you can, at Eden Inn, at Last Chance to Paint In, or at John Dyer Gallery. We will reshare them and celebrate your work you've done today. Brilliant.
And will you share your final painting when you've done your finishing touches as well?
Yes, I will. So the video of today, we'll edit all the bad bits out and make it look much more professional. I'll put my painting in as well, and then everybody can see what I've done, and hopefully I'll get to see what everybody else has done too.
That would be wonderful, wouldn't it? Brilliant. So thank you so much. Thank you for bearing with us with our technical trials today. We will learn lots, and we will do more together. We would love to see your work at Eden Schools Team, or at Eden Project, at Last Chance to Paint.
Yes, or at John Dyer Gallery.
Tell us how you got on. Tell us what you would like more of, and come and visit us soon at the Eden Project. So goodbye from all of us. Thank you to the tech team, and Tom on the filming, and Catherine. Thank you so much to John, and we'll see you again soon.
It's not always possible to complete a painting in one sitting, so I've gone back to my painting once it's dried and added details like the eyes on the bats, and more bats around the undergrowth and local birds. Look at this beautiful hornbill. I've popped that on the roof of the Panan house, and this wonderful crested wood partridge that would run around on the forest floor. and a banded snake looked perfect at the bottom of my painting. And of course I've added the Panan tribe as well, working in their home garden. I hope you like my painting and that you've enjoyed doing your painting and you can hopefully complete it and feel more connected to the rainforest.